Welcome back to another budget money talks with your favorite two travel chicks. We're here to break down another trip for you guys. We're gonna break down New Zealand because New Zealand was my favorite.
We love New Zealand.
It actually wasn't. I really liked everything, but I do like New Zealand a lot. So if you watched the last video, you know we're gonna literally just break it down, everything of the expenses.
We want to make these videos so that you guys can come and reference them and know how much you would need to save to go on these trips and understand that it really is not that expensive. You don't need to think that travel is like a crazy expense. Don't have the expectation that you're going to be staying in 5-star hotels. Like, budget traveling is not luxurious, but you still get to see the most beautiful things, so.
And with that, we'll get into it. So, as you know, we went to New Zealand on our way to our study abroad. So we flew to Hawaii for the night and we stayed in a hotel in Hawaii and that was $82. And then we flew to Auckland. The flight from Calgary to Auckland ended up coming to $637.51. We only booked it like a month out, 3 weeks out.
We booked 2 separate flights, so it wasn't one flight with a layover. We booked a trip from Calgary to Hawaii and then we stayed overnight, and then we had a separate flight booked from Hawaii to Auckland the next day.
And then when we got to Auckland, we needed to store, basically we went with a large suitcase as a checked bag and then a smaller suitcase as a carry-on bag and a backpack. So we were only traveling around New Zealand with the smaller suitcase and the backpack, so we checked our large luggage at the airport in Auckland, and that was $125 for the 12 days that we were there. It was really nice. I think a lot of big airports do that. So if you are transiting and you want to go somewhere, keep that in mind. You can do that.
So we stayed in 5 hostels throughout our journey around the North Island, and the total of the hostels for the 12 days we were there came to $160.53. So that is super cheap. That's like one night in a really nice hotel. Hostels are super cheap, a really good way to travel on a budget. And if you've never heard of them, they're very safe. They're like a group dorm basically that you stay in. You pay for a bunk bed instead of paying for a room, and you get to sleep there.
We'll break down how much each hostel was in the description, so if there's anything like not super exact, it'll be down there.
While we were in New Zealand, we rented a car to go around, but we also paid for a certain amount of hours with a bus company so that we could take a trip up to the north point of the island and also do a tour around Auckland.
It's basically set up where you pay based on how many hours you want, so we could have paid less and gotten less hours, but because we needed to get up to Paihia from Auckland, up to Cape Reinga, and then back down, and then we did the little bus tour because we had a couple extra hours on it. So that came to $193.51. So it wasn't too expensive, and it was definitely worth it because the amount that we would have paid in gas to do all of that is
a lot more. If you're going to New Zealand and you're not old enough to rent a car, the bus pass is a good option. Like, you get to pick when you're going places and all that stuff, so you can do that if you're not old enough to rent a car. And they were nice buses, like they weren't horrible or anything like that.
It was good.
Now we're gonna talk about the excursions we did while we were in Auckland and how much they cost. Obviously these ones are up to you, so which ones you want to do, you can budget into however much you need to save.
So the first excursion we did was a Skywalk, and only myself and Howard did this, so it was Emma,
I did not.
She observed from the top, but that came to $138.73. We booked it before. And then the other big excursion that we did was the Waitomo Glowworm Caves. That was $147, and it was really cool. You basically go through like this huge underground cave system and like float through it and get to look up at the glowworms. I would recommend that as well.
That is a super New Zealand highlight. We would definitely recommend doing that. It was definitely worth the money. So while we were in New Zealand, we basically bought groceries. We didn't really eat out, and we made food in our hostels. Another thing about hostels is that they usually will have full functioning kitchens that you can use to make food so that you're not spending crazy amounts of money eating out all the time. So we spent $244.92 on food. Really, when I'm traveling now, I buy like the bare essentials: bread, peanut butter, cheese, maybe some fruit, and like ramen noodles.
Yeah, that's it. It's a good way to save money.
Yeah. The way we usually travel now is that we'll buy groceries for breakfast, especially breakfast, because we can eat in the hostel and not spend $10 on a breakfast, and then we'll eat out for lunch or dinner depending on what we're doing that day.
The other last expense that I had written down was that I transferred Howard $147.35, and that was to cover one of the hostels because he booked that for all of us, gas for the car and the car rental. So he would have split the gas total and the car total between 5 of us.
That's basically what we paid for in New Zealand. Obviously there are some discrepancies if we like bought clothes or something while we were there, or a souvenir souvenir that's added on.
It was basically $1,200.
Yes. As you can see, it's not that expensive to travel. $1,200 is not a lot to go on a cool trip like that, and New Zealand was one of the most memorable trips I've ever taken.
I would recommend it. Start saving your dimes.
Yes. Our next budget video will be our Europe budget. We went to London, Amsterdam, and all over Italy. So if you are interested in that, subscribe to us, like this video. If you have any questions about our trip to New Zealand or what we spent there, comment that down below and we'll get back to your questions.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Bye. Bye.